I left because she screwed up. Jody Morgan moved into the house across the street from us when she was 14 years old. For a 15-year-old boy, it was love at first sight. There was no meet cute. From the beginning, it seemed like we were destined to be together forever. But enough sentimentality. What really bonded us was a shared love of adventure. We were always needing to do something, not some everyday things, but extraordinary things. As kids, it started with things like climbing really tall trees or exploring caves, diving off local bridges and painting water towers. Nothing seemed to be taboo as long as it stayed within the law, although a lot of it was walking on the edge, if you know what I mean. Her favorite expression was, "You always regret what you didn't do." We barely managed to make it through high school without killing ourselves. I graduated first and got a good job laying bricks. Our school had a construction vocational training program, and I took full advantage of it. Jody graduated a year later. She went through the nursing program and was quickly hired by one of the local ambulance services. 6 months later, Jody Morgan became Mrs. John Terrell. Our extracurricular activities slowed down a lot, but did not disappear. The excitement we lacked outside the house we made up for in the bedroom. As far as love was concerned, everything was on the menu. We worked hard. We saved money and bought a house. After our third son was born, Jody quit her job. Life was good. I had 6 people working for me, and there was more work than we could handle. Only one problem still existed. Jody started to feel sorry for herself. "John, we have to do something about this." "With what?" "Everything seems to be fine. Are the boys okay?" "The boys are fine for now. I'm worried about us. We're at a standstill. If we don't start doing something, we'll put down roots, and we won't be able to move anymore." "That's a hell of an exaggeration, but I know what you mean. Any suggestions?" "The boys are 8, 9, and 10 years old. I think they're old enough to do it with us. We'll have to adapt a little to hook them up, but I think it could be fun. It doesn't have to be all the time, but we have to do something. I don't want them to regret not doing something when they were young. We didn't." Jody didn't appreciate it when I started laughing. "What the hell is so funny here, John? You sound just like you did 20 years ago. Is this the legacy you're going to leave your sons?" "Why not? I think it would be a good idea to instill it in them. I don't want them to grow up to be logs." "Is that all?" "No. I want that for myself, too. There's a hell of a lot of things we haven't done yet. We can afford it, and we've got time. Your guys can cover for you when you need to get away." "Okay, I agree. Let's rock." That's what I think they're saying now. For the next couple years, we were constantly on the move. It wasn't continuous, but regular enough. When one trip was over, Jody was already planning the next 1 or 2. We all enjoyed mountain river rafting, and it opened a few doors for us. We took 2 trips to the Boundary Waters in Minnesota. We tried bungee jumping and zip lining. We ended up with 5 kayaks. After getting our scuba certifications, even more opportunities opened up to us. We tried hot air ballooning, but found it boring. Jody and I did a tandem skydive. 10 years passed. Terry, our oldest son, joined the Air Force. Greg became a scuba instructor, and Robert, the youngest, became a truck driver. Jody and I were left alone. Everything seemed to slow down. I spent more time at work, and Jody spent more time online. Jody went back to work. Things were quiet for a few months. "John?" "Yeah?" "I'm starting to get a little worried." "What exactly does that mean?" "There's something I need to do. There's a lot going on at work right now, so maybe it can wait a bit." "I guess so. Actually, I was thinking maybe for a change I could do something on my own." "You mean by yourself?" "Not exactly. I thought maybe with one of the girls from work. I've never gone anywhere without you, so it would be some variety at least." "Is there anything in particular in mind?" "No. Sarah and I have talked about it a bit, but we haven't decided anything yet." "That's Sarah Harlow?" "Yes. You've seen her at some of the picnics. Is that the one who's been divorced twice?" Jody hesitated. "Yeah, but that's not a problem." Why would it be? I'm sorry, I figured you'd be judgmental. Just because she's divorced doesn't make her a bad person. I never said that, and I'm sorry if that's how you interpreted it. So you're okay with it? Of course. Have I ever turned you down for anything? Thank you. Thank you. I felt bad. All the trips and vacations that Jody planned were tied to her mantra in one way or another. I knew that. I just had to figure out how it applied in this case. She would do something so she wouldn't regret not doing it later. There's a lot of negativity out there. All I had to do was figure out what she was going to do. The business has grown well over the years. In addition to laying brick, we also did a lot of block masonry and poured concrete foundations. We didn't do driveways or sidewalks, just foundations and pouring walls. The company also did steel buildings. They were usually simple prefabricated buildings, but some of them were quite large. I now had over 50 full-time employees. I never asked Jody what she was planning. The fact that she didn't openly say what it would be caused me some concern. I'm sure she had something on her mind. My concerns were greatly heightened when I discovered that she deleted her browser history every time. I think most guys would have no trouble getting around this problem, but I wasn't that smart. I didn't even know what a keylogger was. She was also deleting her email correspondence, but that's where she screwed up. Jody was sending her emails to the recycle garbage can, but she didn't realize that they stayed in the recycle garbage can for 30 days if she didn't empty the recycle garbage can every time. I started going through her emails from the last month. Most of them were the usual junk, but the correspondence she had with Sarah was enlightening. The words were enough to confirm my suspicions, but the web links that accompanied them made up for it. I didn't check all the linked sites. There was no need. It was time to make a decision I would not regret. It was Tuesday's fair in Buca, and yes, it was indeed Tuesday. I felt like the new kid in school. It was my first time going out, even though I had been here for 2 days. I wandered around for a while and finally found my assigned coffee shop. Being old school, I ordered a regular black coffee. It was still early and people were just starting to gather, so I took one of the still available seats. I felt weird wearing a New York Yankees baseball cap, but that was one of the conditions placed on me. "Hey, new guy! Welcome to the Buckeye. You must be Mickey, right?" My greeter was also wearing a Yankees cap. I sort of half rose to greet him, but he gestured for me to sit back down and did the same. Ted Williams. Always a pleasure to meet a fellow ball player. He shook my hand vigorously. We both laughed a little at the inappropriate reference to a ball player. I thought it was a joke, but I had a feeling a lot of people knew about it. "How many players are we talking about?" At the moment, there seemed to be 10 baseball players and 3 tennis players. Tennis? The baseball players are all guys, but there are 3 other girls in the program here, and Hector decided tennis was a better fit for them. They're all here? All but one. Chris Everett lives in David. Just then, Sandy Koufax and Bob Feller joined us. Before the morning was over, I had met 4 more famous ball players. Bob quickly cut to the chase. "So, Mr. Mickey Mantle, in 25 words, no more, tell us why you decided to choose Panama Promotions Alternatives." I guessed from the way the question was phrased that no one wanted the gruesome details. Just a brief overview. My wife of 23 years decided she wanted to spread her wings, and I decided I didn't want to stand in her way, so I left. Yogi Bear was the first to respond. "That was more than 25 words. Ted poked him in the ribs with his finger. For the next 20 minutes, each of the guys talked about their reasons for participating in the program. They were almost all different, but the results were the same. 10 guys and 3 girls signed up for the PPA to avoid unwanted situations at home. It wasn't cheap, and it wasn't error-free. Basically, we got a new name, a new driver's license, and a new bank account. Unfortunately, we were still U.S. citizens and had to pay taxes on our old names. All except Joe DiMaggio, who was originally from Canada. If someone really wanted to find us, they could do it. Hector Ruiz organized Panama Promotions alternatives so that people in our position would have some option to disappear without going to extremes. It wasn't a black ops type system, in fact. It was pretty loose. Hector was an avid baseball fan. Things weren't exactly kosher, but it was greased up enough to make us feel comfortable. The name change was properly processed. The driver's license and bank accounts were in order. Using them was not a simple but doable endeavor. It was almost noon when my cell phone rang. I hadn't gotten around to buying a new one yet. The whole crew watched me read the message. AR Jamachia, Flight 247, has landed at Philadelphia International Airport from Montego Bay. I looked at my companions and smiled. Gentlemen, my wife has just returned home from a 10-day vacation. That evening, we all went to the Rock for some ribs. I spent the next few months getting to know the neighborhood. There was always one or two crew members around for companionship and assistance. I notified all three boys of the situation, but no details. Their mother could explain everything to them. Hector insisted that all PSA members carry worry suitcases with the most essential items in case of a sudden departure. Both Barry Bonds and Willie Mays had to use their suitcases at some point. Barry was tracked down by his irritated wife, and Willie was sought out by his two brothers-in-law. They were more than happy to recommend items for me to carry in case of need. The need arose sooner than I expected. The phone rang at 5 in the morning. Who the hell would be calling at this hour? Mr. Mantle, this is Hector. The driver will be at your place in 30 minutes. Get everything you need ready and be prepared to stay at least a week, maybe longer. Don't say anything to anyone. I'll take care of everything. There really wasn't much to do. I had just enough time to shower and shave and still be ready to leave. Fortunately, the driver had brought along some arepas, cornmeal tortillas. An hour later, we were in David. Chris Everett was waiting with an anxious suitcase when we pulled up. I have no idea why she chose David over Boki. As we drove south, the temperature was completely different. She didn't look like a tennis player at all. Of course, I didn't look like a baseball player either. She looked more like a Mediterranean type. We introduced ourselves and she began to settle in. She had already eaten breakfast and I ate her arepas. Do you have any idea where we're going? I shook my head. No. Do you have any idea why? I feigned ignorance again. She had a dejected look on her face and sat silent for the rest of the ride. 30 minutes later, we pulled up to a small marina. I had no idea where we were. I know absolutely nothing about sailboats. I only know that the one we were on was of medium size. After unloading us and our bags, the driver smiled, waved, and drove off. The boat was called the Yankee Clipper. I thought that was ironic. The captain, Jaime Ruiz, was Hector's cousin. His mate was a young local girl named Marisol. It turned out he ran the ship and she took care of everything else. I had no idea what we would be doing or how much we would be charged for this service, but it didn't matter. Our things were stowed in the back cabin and we gathered on deck to drink coffee and eat some cookies. It was too early for lunch. Jaime was proudly telling us about his Peterson 44. It meant nothing to me. Chris and I both acted like we were interested, wanting to make him feel good. I glanced at her a few times, and it was easy to see how she felt. However, he got her attention when he mentioned that we would be staying in the main cabin and he and Marisol would be across the hall. I'm sorry, but that doesn't work for me. She said this in all seriousness. I smiled, and Jaime looked a little embarrassed. I don't even know this man, and I have no intention of sharing a bed or even a room with him. You'll have to think of something else. Jaime didn't have a quick answer, so I had to step in. Don't worry about that. I can use the main bathroom, and I won't have any trouble sleeping on the folding bed in the galley. I'm sure Ms. Chris won't mind me storing my bag in her room. Would you mind? After I said that, I realized that by using the expression Miss Chris, I had made a fool of myself. I need to be more careful not to repeat that mistake in the future. Chris went below to get settled in her cabin while I wandered around the deck. Jamie and Marisol pulled away from the dock using the auxiliary engine. I had no idea where we were and no idea where we were going, and I didn't care. I must have dozed off because the next thing I remember was Marisol calling me to lunch. It looked like most lunches would be on the deck. That suited me just fine. After a light lunch, Jamie opened a small tablet computer. Ms. Everett, your ex-husband, Anthony Krupe, and some friends arrived in Panama City last night and rented a car this morning. All we know is that they asked the woman at the car rental counter for directions to David's place. Chris sank down in her chair, sighed, and said, "Shit." Mr. Mantle, your wife, Jody Terrell, came on the same flight from Philadelphia and rented a car as well. We don't know anything else. Marisol, do you have any cold beer? I couldn't think of anything smarter. 30 minutes later, Jaime and Marisol were already hoisting the sails, and soon we were hurtling full speed into the open ocean. Chris spent the rest of the day down below, while I lay on the deck, enjoying the sun and the wind, and got my cold beer. For the next 3 days, all was quiet. I slept in the galley, Chris took the master bedroom, and Jaime and Marisol shared the forward cabin. I tried to be helpful, helping Jaime whenever I could. Chris helped Marisol, but did some of the cooking herself. She was great at brunch-type meals. No one complained. She seemed to be comfortable in the kitchen and in the hall. I spent most of my free time on deck, except when it rained. It rained almost every day, but not all day. When we weren't sailing, Jaime found some quiet coves and bays to moor the boat for a while. I caught a few fish, but had no idea what kind of fish they were. All I knew was that they were pretty tasty. Chris spent time on the deck, but more often than not, she usually wore a light blanket. She had a one-piece swimsuit that was modest and seemed a little old-fashioned for her. Unlike Jody, Chris was short and stocky. She wasn't fat, but rather well-fed. I found that interesting, but not erotic. You know, a little sun would help you keep that nice tan. It was a feeble attempt on my part to be friendly. It's not a tan, you idiot. The sun ages your skin and is the leading cause of melanoma. I'd rather cover up than look like an old woman with tanned skin. That was unexpected. Her skin had a golden sheen to it, and I just assumed it was from a regular tan. I guess she really was Mediterranean. I'll try a different approach tomorrow. All was quiet and serene. Who am I kidding? It was boring as hell. By the end of the week, Chris was finally warming up. The conversations were short and meaningless, but they were conversations. That night after dinner, we were on the deck and she decided to open up a little. "Mickey, why are you here? What made you sign a contract with the PPA? Since I decided to live in David instead of Boca, I feel a little out of place. You all know each other up there. That should work both ways. Put it this way. You tell me your story, and I'll tell you mine. But there's one thing I need to know first." "Yes, what's that?" "What's your real name?" "We're not supposed to talk, but the hell with it. My name is Carla." "Great, you can call me John. It's funny for me to say Mickey." Carla reached into the fridge and pulled out a new bottle of beer for both of us. "I won't bore you with the long story. I got married about 8 years ago in Westchester to the son of an old family friend. I guess you could call it a marriage of convenience, although technically it wasn't. My family was well-to-do, and his family was too. Unfortunately, I couldn't have children, so my husband decided he needed to look for someone else. Should I continue?" I smiled, nodded, and took a sip of my beer. My family, the Randazzos, were in the municipal construction business. They maintained all the traffic lights, street lights, storm sewers, and other such projects in the Tri-County area. It was very profitable. The Krupe family owned 4 restaurants, several pizzerias, and sandwich stores. "And how did you end up here?" "My husband Tony just informed me that he was having a baby with his last girlfriend. He was going to move her into our house while she was pregnant, and after the baby was born, they would find a more suitable place to live. He seemed to be very confident. He's always been like that." She brought us 2 more cold ones. I smiled and waited for her to continue. I burned the house down, as well as 3 cars. Then I burned down the biggest of Krupi's restaurants, and finally I cleaned out all the bank accounts, including savings and investments. 2 days later, I was here. We sat in silence for a few minutes, enjoying our beers. Okay, John, now it's your turn. My wife Jody and I met when we were kids. We grew up together and were always getting into trouble. She enjoyed every minute of it. Her mantra was, always regret the things you don't do. And she lived by that. Eventually, we got married and had 3 children. I started my own construction business, which was doing very well. Every chance we got, we were doing something adventurous and exciting. As the children grew up, she got bored and decided to have one of her own ventures. The nature of the project she chose meant that I couldn't go along with her, and also, unfortunately, she couldn't discuss it with me. Carla handed me a new cold beer. I think I see where this is going. I'm no computer genius, but I had no trouble figuring it out. It was really bothering me. I don't know what was worse, knowing what she was going to do or knowing she was keeping it a secret from me. We'd shared everything all our lives, and now it was going to happen. I take it you waited until she left before finalizing everything? Yes. I turned my business over to my employees in exchange for a share in future profits and took a good chunk of our savings, but not all of it. I left her the house and everything else. Are you sure she did what you think she did? No, I don't want to know, and I don't need to know more than I know. I don't need this grief. Have you heard anything about her since then? Nope. We sat in silence for a while, and then Carla apologized and went to bed. I slept on the deck that night. The next day, there was some kind of storm. It got really bad by dinner time. Jaime and Marisol spent quite a bit of time setting up ropes or anchors or something to get ready for the night. They seemed to know what they were doing, so I felt at ease. All I could think about were the lyrics from an old Queen song. I don't know what was worse, the bright flashes of lightning or the loud peals of thunder. It was hard to fall asleep, and the fact that Carla kept shaking me wasn't helping. What the hell do you want? It's a really bad storm, John. Come down to the cabin with me, quickly. It's okay, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Go back to bed. I'm not worried about you, asshole. I'm worried about me. Get your ass back to your quarters, now. She tugged on my arm. I spent the rest of the night with my arms around her. Most of the time, she pulled the blanket over her head. By the next morning, all was quiet and peaceful. She seemed to be awake but didn't know what to do and just lay there unmoving. Smoothly as I could, I pulled my ass back and removed my hand. I had no idea how it ended up under her nightgown. When we were settled on the bed, she turned to face me. Thank you, John. I needed that. She slid off the bed and went into the cutting room. I had no idea what she meant. I slumped over the side of the bunk with relief. The rest of the day, Carla was very friendly. Jamie and Marisol enjoyed making us feel bad about our night together. The comments and teasing didn't stop all day. In fact, Carla seemed to give it a couple times herself. I was more embarrassed than she was. In the evening, after a few beers on deck, Carla took my hand and we went to the cabin together. We hardly slept that night. It was a new experience for me. My first woman other than Jody. It was both different and, at the same time, the same. It's hard to describe, but I really enjoyed it. I didn't feel any guilt. Unfortunately, it was also our last night aboard the Yankee Clipper. On the way home, our driver gave us the latest news. It seems that Jody had left Bouquet after a week and had returned home. Carla's husband, however, had just disappeared with his 2 companions. They found a rental car in the middle of nowhere, but no passengers. We dropped Carla off at her apartment, and an hour later I was home. The first person I met the next morning was Billie Jean King. She had spent most of the week with Jody while I was away. Jody had spent a couple days showing my picture all over town. It didn't take her long to realize that I was now Mickey Mantle. Except for the guys at the PPA, nobody was hiding anything about me. They just didn't have any information to give her other than my address. When she realized I wasn't coming back, she gave up and left. She didn't say much, but she told Billie Jean that I left because she screwed up. That's all she said. It didn't sound like much of an explanation, but then again, it was secondhand. However, if that's what she really thought, then my leaving was the right choice. Things went pretty normally for the next few months, except that I spent 2 or 3 days a week in David and Carla spent a couple days a week in Boca. There was never a deep emotional attachment between us. It was just a good friendship. Eventually, she decided I wasn't going to move to David and found us an apartment in Boca, bigger and better, and we teamed up. Carla decided to take up watercolor painting, and I got serious about sports. So serious that Willie Mays, Sandy Koufax, and I decided to open our own gym. A gym, so to speak. It was a fun little project. A whole group of expats in the neighborhood had unused exercise equipment that was sitting idle. It's funny how people buy these things without realizing that they don't help if you don't use them. In a short time, we had more exercise equipment than we needed. More than half of them were not up to the level of the gym, and we ended up having to throw them out. No one seemed to be offended by this. They just wanted to get rid of them. Monica Seeley's was very happy that we opened so she could start yoga and Zumba classes. We charged a small monthly fee to cover rent, utilities, and insurance. Things were going well at the gym, and Carla was excited about her painting. Other than that, however, things were not so rosy. The PPA had become a ball of worms. Hector was doing his best to make things work, but it was too difficult. Several of the guys were having problems with their passports. The tax situation was confusing. On top of that, the complexities of banking could confuse anyone. After several group meetings, it was decided to drop the program. Everyone agreed except Joe DiMaggio. Hector agreed to make an exception for him. It took a couple of weeks, but in the end, everyone had new driver's licenses and bank accounts. Our old passports were still in order. The only downside now was that we would now be easier to find. We still kept Hector as our legal advisor and confidant. We also, just in case, kept our anxious suitcases. A year passed and I didn't even notice it. The checks still came every month. They varied in amount, but always more than enough. The good news was that Carla had a lot more money than I did, and she didn't skimp. We lived the good life and didn't need anything. I haven't had any contact with Jody or my son since the last time I called them. The next 6 months were pretty active. One day I came home and saw Carla sitting on the porch with a stranger. Michael Randazzo had come from Westchester to spend a week with his daughter. They hadn't spoken since she left. Her mother couldn't make it due to heart problems. I felt some anxiety, but he quickly put me at ease. He was genuinely grateful that his daughter was happy and being taken care of. I felt a little uneasy, especially since I was almost 20 years older than her. Over the next week, Michael and I spent several hours together. He apologized for letting the problem with Carla's husband get out of hand. He never said it, but I got the idea that Anthony Krupe had never returned to the States and never would. I didn't ask for an explanation. It was his monkey and his circus. He tried to get the charges against Carla dropped, but was unsuccessful. He also asked me about my marital status and seemed genuinely interested in my answer. The week passed quickly. Carla was happy, and that only made me feel better. Before he left, he took me aside. "John, Carla needs to see her mother. She can't go back as Carla Krupe, but she can do it as Carla Terrell. Think about it." I interpreted that as his approval. 6 weeks later, I got another surprise. My son Greg showed up. "You're hard to find, Dad, but not impossible. I'm sorry I haven't kept in touch, but I assume you know the situation." "Actually, Dad, none of us do know. We've all tried, but Mom refuses to tell us anything. She just says it was her fault and nothing more. It's been over a year and I haven't heard from her. She showed up over a year ago and I avoided her the whole time she was here. I was still too scatterbrained at the time." "From what, Dad? Are you going to give us a clue?" "No, I've said too much already. Now what the hell are you doing here?" "Do you know where Boca del Toro is?" "Of course I do. It's about 5 hours north of here. Why?" "I bought 50% of the stock in the dive store. I'm here to do the paperwork. I'll be moving in next month." "What's your mother doing?" "She was pretty depressed for a while. Then she found a new job. She's working in the junior high school cafeteria. She tried to sell the house but couldn't without your signature, so she rented it out and got an apartment. We talked to her about getting a more upscale job, but she got upset and told us to mind our own business. With the rent she gets for the house and her salary, I think she's doing okay." At that moment, Carla walked in. It was obvious that she lived here, and neither of us thought to hide it. "Hi, you must be Greg. John talks about you a lot." Greg was surprised, and it was evident on his face. Carla laughed. "It's okay, Greg. Just think of me as your father's housekeeper. Who wants a beer?" She knew how to melt ice. Greg suddenly felt comfortable with the situation. We talked some more and then went to dinner. Before Greg left for the States, I gave him power of attorney so Jody could sell the house. He came back a month later to start his new business. I haven't had any contact with the business since I left. That was the plan. The checks kept coming in, and I had no reason to pry. After a few months, I noticed that my monthly contributions to the company had increased significantly. I left Gary Jones in charge of the company and felt it was time to put him to the test. "Gary, it's John." "Shit, it's about time. You've been gone for almost 2 years. What's going on?" I was going to ask you the same question. I saw a big jump in the monthly checks and I got curious. Is there something I should know about? A couple months ago, we had a visit from a company out of Philadelphia called Empire Industries. Have you ever heard of them? Of course I had heard of them. Empire Industries was owned by the Randazzo family. All of this must have happened shortly after I met Carla's father. Yes, I've heard of them. I know one of the owners, Michael Randazzo. What happened that led to this? They explained to us that they had gotten a lot of different jobs that didn't fit into their normal operations. They wanted to subcontract these jobs and asked if we were interested. We didn't see anything wrong with the offer, so we agreed to give it a try for 90 days. It worked out great for us. We got a lot of new work in Chester and Montgomery counties, and I had to hire 12 more people. I also had to buy 3 more trucks and some other equipment. Is everything under control, or do you need help? John, everything is under control, but we'd like you to come back. I haven't had a day off since you left. I could use a week ashore. We both laughed a little at his suggestion. Gary, let me think about it for a while. I'll call you back. I heard him smirk on the other end of the wire. Gary, did Jody come by at all? Honestly, John, she's only been here once. About a week after you left, she showed up. I explained to her that you were no longer associated with the company, just like you told me. I know she wanted to know more but couldn't bring herself to ask. She wasn't crying or upset. She looked a little sad. We never saw her again. I had a light but serious conversation with Carla that evening, and she swore she knew nothing about what her dad had done. She thought it was funny, though. Months went by, and everything was going well. At Christmas, I got a surprise when Terry showed up. Greg shared everything with both of his brothers, but carefully kept most of it from his mother. Of course, she knew where I was, and I'm sure she suspected that Greg and I had hit it off since he was in Panama, too. It's just that he never shared anything with her, and she never asked. Terry spent 2 days with me and Carla in Boca, and the rest of the time in Bocas del Toro with Greg. Greg had promised to help him get recertified in scuba diving while he was here. Terry brought 2 things that Jody wanted him to give to me. The first was a check for $210,000, my share of the sale of the house. That was her decision, not mine. The second thing was the final divorce decree. There was no letter, no explanation, no message. Just 2 envelopes. When he left, I had no message or letter for him to pick up. Curtain. I regretted nothing. 2 months later, Carla Terrell got a new passport and was traveling with her new husband to visit her mother. It was a round-trip ticket. The end!